Hey everyone, Rho here. Today we're discussing the Emperor of Mankind, as we discuss the theory that he planned for Cadia to fall. General spoiler warning to begin, as the events we are discussing today are from across the Warhammer 40k universe, so you have been warned. But with that said, let's just jump straight in. Now, the fall of Cadia was undoubtedly the biggest shake-up of the 40k universe, well, ever. And I know Guilliman returning was a major event in itself, which was pretty much tied to this event anyway thanks to the Gathering Storm campaign. But the fall of Cadia and the explosion of the Great Rift, honestly, I mean, nothing can come close to that. Even the return of a Primarch. The Great Rift tore the entire galaxy in half, leaving fully half the Imperium lost amidst the darkness, cut off from the throne world, and chaos was unleashed. The traitor legions were no longer bound to their prison of the Eye of Terror for the first time in 10,000 years, and demons walked the material world in an ease like never before. It is truly a doomsday scenario for the people of mankind. So, the mere thought that perhaps the Emperor himself had planned or allowed for this to happen is surely nothing short of insane, right? Well, most likely yes. However, if there's one thing we know about the Emperor, we know he's willing to make any sacrifice needed to achieve his goal. Now, originally I sat down to write a fun discussion about a bunch of twists that could just be a surprise upset. Things that may surprise us in future narratives. However, when I started thinking about this one, I ended up thinking about it so much I decided to break them all down into separate discussions instead. So could the Emperor really have planned or allowed Cadia to fall? Well, obviously I don't think he did, no. However, the more I thought about it, the more I came to the conclusion that I wouldn't be surprised if he did either. The Emperor, as we know, had a very powerful gift of foresight. One that probably surpassed even the famed Eldari, and while never an absolute science, and more akin to currents drifting through an ocean, it did of course gift views of very possible futures, even glimpses of 10,000 years to come. And that is exactly what the Emperor foresaw. Despite the calamity that was the heresy, the warp storms and chaos that threw everything into flux, the mistake of Magnus ruining the Emperor's grand plans in his ultimate moment of triumph, there were moments still he caught glimpses of a possible future beyond it. And we have seen even in the darkest and final moments of the heresy, he foresaw a time through all the 10,000 years of suffering to come, in the Imperium's darkest hours and moments, that long-lost heroes would return. That hope is still alive. And that of course is a nod not only to Guilliman's return, but to a tease of future Primarch returns to come. So if he foresaw the Primarchs returning, I think it can be taken as nigh on a guarantee that the plight he saw the Imperium in was the Imperium as it is now, with the Cicatrix Maledictum and chaos engulfing the galaxy. So if the Emperor knew of this fate to come, then why didn't he do more about it? Why not stop Abaddon from destroying Cadia? Now, I guess the first argument may be, how much could the Emperor truly do from his imprisonment upon the Golden Throne? And I think that's a fair point to say. According to Guilliman, he had been completely unspoken ever since he was first interred upon the throne at the end of the heresy, until finally conversing with Guilliman himself upon his return and arrival within the throne room, some 10,000 years later. However, while that may be technically true, I don't think it's the complete truth. First of all, while it's certainly not explained as a matter of fact beyond any doubt, the Emperor quite possibly spoke to Russ within a dream in the aftermath of the heresy, and I believe this truly to be the Emperor speaking with his son, telling Russ that his duty is not done. It's just one of those moments I've been dying to discuss in a Lehman Russ week someday. But perhaps one of the more famous instances, it's strongly assumed that the Emperor spoke somehow again to Russ in that moment of glassy-eyed reflection before he delivered his farewell Wolf-time speech, before abruptly departing for the Eye of Terror. And then we have seen Constantine Valdor being shown a vision of Fenris, which obviously Valdor was certain came from the Emperor himself, or quite simply he would never have departed Terra. So it certainly appears to me that the Emperor has indeed communicated at least 3 times after his ascension, even if in only visions alone. We know by the time of Guilliman's return that the effort required for the Emperor to pull himself back together just to be able to speak to his son is absolutely monumental. But I'm willing to still lean on the side that if the Emperor truly wanted to warn the Imperium of this catastrophic threat to come, then somehow, some way he could. Even if it was just a vision of Cadia's destruction to one of the High Lords, convincing them to act. Or maybe more likely, a vision sent to Trajan Valoris. So, while the Emperor may have not been able to do much, there was perhaps more he could do than simply nothing. But Celestine was sent to Cadia. Well, yes, and that's a good argument against it. But her involvement could merely have been a necessity to ensure Belisarius Cawl escaped, and his ultimate uniting with Yvraine, the ultimate precursor to Guilliman's revival, or to force Abaddon's hand in destroying Cadia. That him taking the system would not be enough. It had to be destroyed so the Cicatrix Maledictum would spill out, all actors playing their part in the play, the ultimate drama to unfold. Again, I don't think this is the case, but in knowing how the Emperor works, you'd be hard pressed to say that that couldn't have happened. This is the guy who manipulated Vulcan into building the Doomsday device for the Golden Throne, the man who had his loyal Thunder Warriors eliminated when he found a better weapon, who had Monarchia destroyed to teach his son a lesson. For all of my love for the Emperor, of which we know is great, even I have to say he's willing to make sacrifices to reach his ultimate end goal. And if he felt the fall of Cadia was an unfortunate but necessary part of that, well then that's exactly what he'd do. But would the Emperor merely have allowed half the galaxy to plunge into darkness, to merely aid the return of one of his sons? Well, no, of course not. Even if it were Guilliman, who, regardless of your feelings towards the Primarchs, I think most of us can agree he was the best one to return for the immediate job at hand. The best one suited to marshal the strategic overview of the entire Imperium's defences. But if not just for Guilliman, would the Emperor have rolled the dice on his biggest gamble yet, at a chance at ultimate victory? Well, to me, when I think of the Emperor of Mankind, then absolutely he would. And why would he want to do that? Well, is it a coincidence that we've seen him begin to act for the first time since the Rift's explosion? No. The power of the warp is undoubtedly linked to the now God Emperor, just as the Chaos Gods and their demons. Yes, it may have allowed the gods of chaos greater reign than ever before, but it also allowed him it too. Now, for the first time in 10,000 years, the Emperor can truly act. And acting he is. From easing passage of Guilliman's fleets through the warp, from aiding his people on countless battlefields across the Imperium, to scolding Mortarion like a child, and making Nurgle draw the curtains and hide behind the sofa, the Emperor foresaw this period of darkness, but also the hope, and the opportunity that it brings. A time when his sons begin to return. A time when, after the slow grinding defeat of 10,000 years, that the chance of that long-fought lost ultimate victory reappears. Sure, it requires a gamble. The greatest roll of the dice he's ever had to make. But what is the alternative? A slow, grinding defeat. Let's make no mistake about it. The Imperium has not been on the offensive since the Great Crusade. They may have survived, but they have not advanced. In fact, they have fallen a long way. And slowly, world by insignificant world, they are being worn away. Year after year, century after century. To do nothing is to doom the species. And that is anathema to everything the Emperor of Mankind stands for. So, knowing he foresaw this time to come, is it just possible he allowed it all to transpire, knowing it also allowed him the opportunity, finally, despite the sacrifices, as bleak and as dark as it is, to ultimately achieve his victory? As always guys, what do you think? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. For me, I dunno, the thought of the Emperor allowing loyal worlds to fall is a hard swallow. And again, I don't think it's the case that he simply allowed it to happen without a fight. More that he knew it had the possibility of eventually transpiring anyway. But I have to admit, the more I thought about it, the more I began to come around to the fact that it could, I repeat, could just be possible. But as always guys, that's it for today. Huge thank you to all my subscribers. Your support truly means a lot to me, it really does. And if you're new, please consider subscribing to help the channel grow. And if you enjoyed this particular vid, then why not drop a like on it too. But with that said, I am off, and I'll see you all again real soon.